On today's show, we're going to be giving you the information that nobody else wants to talk about. We're going to be talking in depth about the hidden cost you have when buying a home. You hear all of this about zero down, no money, you don't need anything. Wonder if that's true or not. You're going to find all of that out today on this episode of the Elite Realty Group Podcast. Here we go, y'all. Hello once again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Elite Realty Group Podcast, where we bring to you the most up-to-date, relevant real estate information you're going to find anywhere on the planet. You get it right here from your friends at Elite Realty Group. I'm Mike Elkins, got my partner in crime, Mr. Dave Elkins, both of us with Elite Realty Group in Morristown, Tennessee, ready today to spit the fire of information to all of you. We're going to be talking to you today about the things that you don't talk about a lot, and that's the hidden cost of buying a home. Are you ready to roll, my man?
Yes, sir. I'm ready.
I think this is some good information.
I
know
great.
It's going to be very helpful because you and I are doing this whole homeowner journey with people all the time. This is one of the biggest questions that we get. Like, what do I need? Like, what's the money I need? How much cash on hand do I need? Although we're probably not going to be able to give the exact dollar amount here today that you're going to need.
Prices may vary.
Yeah, we're going to be able to talk to you about what some of those costs are and that you're going to be prepared for that. Now, let's get the elephant out of the room when we get started here. You do hear the conversation all the time, especially in our area. I always like to make sure this gets thrown in on these podcasts. We are in East Tennessee, Morristown area, the Lakeway region, whatever you want to call it. And so we're going to talk specific about here, but this is pretty much in general. You hear all the time throughout the country, no money down.
Right. Big selling.
Big
point.
Deal.
Yeah, like
it's a
people,
big deal.
People like to hear that. And in some situations,
Sure.
that is true. That is true.
That is.
But there's more to the story.
There's always more
as that
to
one
it.
guy used to say. What's his name?
I have no
Paul
idea.
something other.
Yeah.
And the rest.
That's
of the
the
story.
rest of the story.
Yeah.
Paul Harvey.
That's
we're
what
on now.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
we're feeling good. We're warmed up now.
Yep.
So there are no money down loans.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Loans.
But the loan's not the only thing you got to worry about when buying a house.
Right.
Cost association.
Yes.
Okay. There's more to it.
Right.
We're going to talk to you today in depth about a lot of different things. Loans will come up. But we're going to talk to you about monies that you're probably going to be prepared or need to be prepared to have cash, funds, whatever you want to call it, set aside for your deal just when you're trying to get it to close.
Right.
We're going to talk to you today about what you need to be prepared for after it closes. You don't think about it afterwards.
Right.
There's going to be some money probably that you need there.
Yep.
That way you are prepared for it. We say all the time on this podcast, on all the shows that we do, our goal in doing this is for people who are buying, selling, investing, involved in real estate in whatever capacity you are, we want you to be prepared.
Yeah, just informed.
Yes.
Informed buyers, sellers. It makes everybody's life easier.
It makes everything go a whole lot easier. So we're going to dive into that today. As always, we welcome your comments. We welcome whether you're watching us on whatever platform you choose, you're listening to us on a podcast, your comments, your likes, your loves, all those things, they're always welcome to us. And depending on where this conversation goes, we're probably going to get some love. We're probably going to get some hate. Yeah. We're probably going to get somewhere in between, but that's okay. We're not afraid to put it out there. You're more than welcome to agree or disagree with us.
Right.
We have opinions here today.
We do.
But what we're going to be giving you as far as this goes, this is stuff you're probably going to want to be prepared for.
Yeah, and I thought, some people, when they hear this information, they're going to be super excited, and some people's going to be real upset.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because of what you just said, people do hear no money down.
Right.
And that is true about loans. But there is some fees that goes along with doing a real estate transaction. We're going to let you know what some of those are.
Yes. Let's start first with the obvious stuff. Okay. We're going to start with the Captain Obvious quotes today of this is obvious. I think most people know about these costs. Right. We're not going to dive into them a lot, but let's talk about the obvious costs first. Okay. Let's start with the one everybody always wants to know about. Remember, we're talking about hidden costs, so we're going to get to the good stuff in a minute, but the down payment.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
The majority of the time, a lot of loans are going to require a down payment.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
They're all over the board.
Mm-hmm.
Like you say, what is that number? Your probably most popular ones are going to be 3.5%. I'm going to say that's,
right.
Would you agree? That's probably the most popular down payment.
Yeah, no doubt. That's FHA loan, 3.5% down.
Correct.
But like you just said, those, as far as what you go past that, there's such a variety. Because and so let's talk about this very briefly. Yes. Very briefly, then we'll move on.
Sure.
But why is that? Because different lenders offer different things.
Correct.
So that's why we tell people, this is a little tag here for lenders. That's why we tell people, though, don't just go to one lender and say, okay, this is what they can do, because every lender offers different packages.
Exactly.
Now, a lot of those are the same, but when you start getting to small, local, mom and pop banks, as I like to call them, they can be flexible in what they do. So don't just think because so-and-so said I have to have 25% down that's just the way it is. Right. That's not true. Like you just said, there's 0% money down loans. And then other small banks do stuff 1% down conventionals, 5% conventionals. There's options. Right. So shop that, okay? Right. Shop that.
And as far as the cost that you need to be prepared for when buying a house, as you just alluded to, that's all going to be depending on, we're talking about just down payment right now. That depends upon the loan you're getting. It depends totally 100% upon what is that loan type. And as you said, very good, who it is that's doing that.
Yeah, and what the property is you're purchasing, because it's going to be a percentage.
Yes.
You're buying $100,000 house, 3.5% is a lot less than $500,000 house.
Correct.
Okay, so that percentage is going to vary on the amount of what you're purchasing.
Absolutely. So if you're buying a home, there's a down payment loan type involved. That's cost. That's really not hidden, though.
No.
You know, most people know I'm going to have some money down. Now, again, there are zero. Talk with your lender, talk with a realtor that'll get you connected with a lender and explore those options, because there are honestly so many different options. There's so many different buttons you can push, move things around, that down payment is a flexible item depending upon your lender and your loan type.
Absolutely.
So that's a cost, not necessarily hidden. I think the next one that we're going to talk about, it's not a hidden cost at all. But I think it's one that a lot of people don't know about, okay? And this is an obvious cost for all of us in the business that we know about it. But I don't know that a whole lot of people really know about closing costs, okay? Buyer and seller closing costs. When you're talking about that, you're talking about loan origination fees. That's how lenders make their money. There's fees to give you the money. There's a fee to originate the loan. What is that? Lender specific. Okay. You're going to have to get that from your lender. You're talking about title fees. Or is an attorney closing this deal? Is a title company closing this deal? Is the lender, the bank, closing this deal? There are those fees for title, doing title search for you, making sure what you're buying something that can be sold. There's not liens against it. There's not health care. There's not attachments that somebody that's done work on the house, a mechanic's lien, something like that has it. There are those fees for title. You never want to skip that kind of stuff, because that totally is going to, what I'm going to say, protect your investment by having those title searches done. You have appraisals, okay? If you're getting a loan, you're going to have an appraisal, okay? Used to, you would see lenders not make you pay for that appraisal fee up front. I don't really see that no more.
No, most of the time they're collecting that up front now. And I guess you can't blame them for that, because so many times the deal falls apart and they're left holding that back.
Correct.
So, but again, key thing is talk to your lender up front about all this. Okay. When you have this conversation up front, you know all this. Okay? You're going to know that I'm going to have to pay for that appraisal. They're going to make you more than likely have title searches. You're going to have to do that before they're going to loan the money. They want to make sure that everything's free and clear. So these are fees that are there that you just don't really realize until you get involved.
Until you start doing
it.
Yes. A lot of times, again, people look at, okay, I'm paying $300,000 for the house. That's what I'm going to. That's it.
Right.
And you start talking about, okay, yeah, you're paying $300,000, but now you got a down payment. Now you got these closing costs. And the other thing a lot of people don't think about, you got to get insurance.
Right.
All right. You got to take care of insurance. The property taxes have to be paid.
Yep.
All of those things are costs that a lot of people, like, they're there, but you don't really think about, okay, I got to have the money up front to get this process going, started, happening. And that way I can then get to this other stuff. Now, let's before you turn us off, okay? The majority of all of that we talked about, the majority of it, other than the down payment portion of it, your property taxes, your insurance, your title fees, your lender origination, all that stuff, depending on how you shape your deal, okay, depending on how you ask for this to be done, a lot of those fees can be asked of the seller to pay for you.
Absolutely.
And I will tell you, in the area that we are in, hear that, people, before you hit me. The area we are in, it's very common to ask the seller to pay for those.
Yes.
And it's very common that the seller agrees to do so.
Yes.
It's not always. This is a deal. It's going back and forth.
Right.
It's negotiations. But those are fees that somebody's got to pay. Okay. The majority of the time in our area, we do see seller contributions toward a lot of these fees other than the down payment. What do you got to add to that?
Well, I'll just say this real quick about the whole closing cost thing. Again, we do. That is the normal here pretty much in our area, is that buyers ask sellers to pay closing costs.
Sure.
Either all or some, and most of the time the sellers will oblige to do that. But here's what we still say. As a buyer, make sure that you can, if at all possible, chip in there. Because here's the deal. This is what, we could go down a real rabbit hole here, but we're not going to. But a lot of times these buyers get so caught up in, what are they going to negotiate?
Sure.
And I'm saying it's about the price of the house.
Yep, I like what you're going.
You could get somebody to drop on a $500,000 house and sell it to you for $300,000. But if you can't pay your closing costs, it don't matter anyways.
It doesn't matter.
You have to have that closing cost, or it ain't going to happen.
Sure.
So keep that in mind.
Yes.
That you might want to try to start. If you know you're going to be looking for a house, budget for that. You know what I mean? Try to put some money back that you can help chip in and help on that closing cost as well, because that makes that seller a lot more negotiable a lot of times when they don't have to pay the full amount, that you can jump in there and help too.
Right.
So keep that in mind.
Well, I'm going to go down that rabbit hole just a little bit more because I think that's a good point. I'm going back to these negotiations. The asking price is $300,000. We want these people to drop on this house. That's when I'm saying, like, depending upon how your deal's fashioned, how it's constructed, how it's written up, I think a lot of times people miss the point that if a seller is paying for some of these fees that we've just talked about with you, that is negotiation.
Yeah, when you're asking for $18,000 in closing costs,
yes,
they've helped you. They've negotiated with you.
You look at it and you say, again, we'll get hit, but I don't care. Sometimes, most of the time, you see somewhere between 4 and 5%.
Right.
That these fees of your loan are going to run into somewhere through there. Okay. Yep. Origination fees, all that good stuff. Okay. I'm throwing it all in a hat. We're not going to pick it apart. So again, if we're talking about a $300,000 house that's 5%, they just negotiated $15,000.
Pretty good.
That's pretty good. That's exactly right. So you look at that and you say, that is negotiations.
Right.
That are really happening. Now, might they lower the price too? You never know till you ask.
Right.
Fashion the deal how you want to fashion the deal. Make sure your realtor is working for you. This is your offer, okay? The realtor's just going to be writing it up for you. They're going to try to advise you on a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, you're the boss. Write it up how you want it. Just don't be, taken back or don't be insulted if you're asking for literally everything to be done.
Right. And
the seller says no.
Right.
That's where you do need to be prepared. Like you said, you want it off on the price, that's cool. You want to pay the closing cost.
Right.
You wanted the closing costs paid, they're probably going to stick closer to the price.
Mm-hmm.
That's just things that happen, okay? That's the going back and forth in a deal. But again, we're talking to you today about hidden costs that are typically there. Now, those are the ones most people know about. Although the closing costs and the insurance, a lot of people just don't think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Now you know. Talk to them. You run the rabbit here. Talk to them now about a lot of what we're going to say overlooked and people honestly don't even know about.
Mm-hmm.
Some overlooked hidden costs. Let's get into the good details that people need to be prepared for when buying a house.
This is where you really hear those, where we're talking about that no money down. Okay.
Sure.
You hear people no money down. These are things that it's money down. Okay.
Right.
There's no way of getting around it.
No.
So number one on the list, and this a lot of times is not required. So you could get by without having to pay this.
Sure. We'll talk more about that.
A lot of loans do not require this. Most of the time this is buyer optional, but that's a home inspection.
Yes.
So we could go way deep. We probably have on previous shows about the importance of home inspections.
Yes.
You're getting ready to spend whatever, $500,000 on a house. Should you spend $650 and get a home inspection to make sure that that home is legit and it's right? I would say that's a no-brainer.
Right.
I always recommend buyers to get home inspections, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But that's a cost that you don't think about, okay?
Right.
You make the offer on the house, it gets accepted, then you have a home inspection.
Sure.
You're going to spend anywhere, I'm going to throw a ballpark out, anywhere from $400 to $1,000 to get this home inspection, okay? Now, that money is non-refundable, okay? If something happens and you don't get the house, the inspection's bad, and the seller will not agree to terms that you want them to agree to at that point, whether that's a price reduction, whether that's fixing the property, you don't get that money back.
No.
You hired an inspector to go do a job, and he done that job.
Correct.
Okay, so that is a cost. Number two, this is required a lot of times by lenders, depending on your loan type, but that's a termite or some type of pest inspection, okay? Now, usually the inspection itself is not very expensive, but there's going to be a price tag. I'm going to say less than $100 to have a termite inspection.
Sure.
Here where we live at, this next one does not apply, but I know a lot of states, North Carolina are bordering, they require you to have a survey performed.
Exactly.
So again, you might want to have a survey done prior to, if you're purchasing large tracts of land, you don't exactly know where your property lines are, you might have to have a survey done up front. People say this all the time. I get this when we're selling land. Well, it's the seller's property. Well, they don't care where the land ends at. You know what I mean? It's been in their family for 80 years.
Yes.
They just know it's over there by that oak tree.
They're trying to sell it to you.
They're trying to sell it to you. If you want to know exactly where the property line is, have a survey.
Yes.
Here's a big one that you don't hear. This is a very, very hidden cost. Earnest money.
Yes.
Okay. Every deal that is done here, we can say this, earnest money is required by the seller. Okay.
Yes.
Now, you can try to negotiate that away.
Right.
But most of the time, there is going to be earnest money given.
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
Right.
What is earnest money? You want to talk about earnest money for a minute?
It's just good faith. I mean, it's just
good
showing
faith.
the people that you're serious about making the offer. You're not just writing something up. And because if you don't have earnest money, you just walk away and you ain't got no skin in the game. It's pretty much, I mean, I'm putting this in Tennessee terms, if you know, but it's just showing them how serious you are. Now, when you talk about that for a moment, you see, I look at all the deals being a broker. I see pretty much every contract that comes through our brokerage, which is hundreds a year that I look at. In our area, typically speaking, that's $500 to $1,000. You see that 75% of the time on a contract, it's $500 to $1,000.
And that's based on the price of the house too.
A lot of people will say, old school rule. Okay, rule of thumb. This wasn't no kind of law. This wasn't nothing but old school real estate. They would always tell you 10%. You want 10% earnest money. So $300,000 is $3,000. That is all negotiable, but something I see very few. And when I say this, I'm saying less than a 0.5%. of contracts come through here and they've been able to negotiate nothing.
Right.
There's always monies on there. And like you said, that's the other thing that I want to say about that earnest money real quick is that's usually due. You make your offer, you get it accepted. It's usually due 3 to 5 days.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's
from that contract being accepted. You got to give that money.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. All of these ones I'm talking about, these are all kind of quick hitters.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because usually once you're under contract, none of this applies unless you were under contract to buy the house.
Yes.
So everybody has agreed to the terms.
Right.
Okay, now you've got so many days, usually, 10 days to do a home inspection.
Yep.
So you have to pay that. Same thing with the termite. Same thing with the earnest money. 3 to 5 days it's due once the thing is accepted. Again, all of these fees, survey, all of these fees are usually non-refundable fees.
Correct.
So if something goes south, now earnest money a lot of times.
I was going to kick in there.
Yeah, I'm going to say earnest money a lot of times. If something happens and if you just don't walk away from the deal.
Right.
Okay, if something happens, your financing falls through, bad home inspection, survey wasn't what it said it was supposed to be. Termites. Earnest money a lot of times is refundable.
Yes.
Okay, so you're not totally 100% going to lose that.
Correct.
I tell people most of the time the only way you're going to lose this earnest money is if everything is great and you have a change of heart.
Just walk away.
When you change your mind and you just say, I don't want this house no more.
Yeah.
A lot of times you're not going to get that earnest money back.
That's right. So those are, we tab these upfront costs. Like they got to be done. And most of these got to be done 10, 15 days, no more than after this contract's been accepted. So you kind of ain't got time at this point to start saving for it.
So let's go here quick.
You got to have it more.
Quick little rundown. Let's just give it. This is fake numbers, but we're going to tell. I mean, they're close. But let's say, okay, we're going to have $500 for earnest money, $700 for a home inspection. We're at $1,200. We've got $80 for a termite. That's $1,280 against surveys. I'm not going to talk about it because it don't apply to us.
Sure.
But right there, within the first 10 days of being under contract on a house, you could see where, man, you could need anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 pretty quickly.
Yes.
So again, but you got a no money down loan.
Right.
So again, hear that, but also know that there is fees that could pop up.
Absolutely. And that's why it's important. We promote this all the time on this podcast. That's why it's important for you to just talk to somebody who can guide you through this process. This is great information if you're sitting out there and you're thinking about, hey, I'm ready to buy a house. What is all the stuff that I got to have? Well, all across this country, there are people waiting right now for you to call them. It doesn't matter where you're watching or listening from, especially if you are here in East Tennessee. Lord, we would love to talk you through every bit of this stuff so that you are prepared, because it's once the deal happens and the offer's made and accepted, this thing starts flying. Okay. And that's what I'm saying. Like, we ain't got time at that point to be saving up. We've got to kind of save up before we got to get ready before we go. Because when we go, it's time to go. Talking to your lender, knowing these fees, knowing kind of what that stuff we talked to you about, that's important information. And, a lot of people will turn the cheek at us when we say, you need to get all this in order up front. Well, this is why we're saying this. You know what I mean? There are a lot of people, okay, that don't have what you just said, $12 to $15 to $2,000 just laying there right now waiting to give it away for a home inspection.
Right.
So you got to be ready and you got to be prepared for those things. And those are up front. Okay. We're not going to pay them later. There ain't no payment plans. You got to pay it. Okay. You got to pay it.
And I can hear people right now in the comments going, if you don't have $2,000, probably shouldn't buy a house. You know what I mean? Yeah. I hear that.
Yeah.
I hear that. But let's just be real. That's not the case for everybody. Okay. No. Some people don't have $2,000 laying around that they can. So now they're having to make a decision.
Right.
Am I going to have a home inspection or am I not?
Right.
And then a lot of times we've said this, man. People say, okay, well, I'm just not going to have a home inspection. You move in, the heat pump goes out, we're $10,000 to the bad right now.
Yes.
When that $600 home inspection could have saved the whole thing.
Right.
So
Right.
maybe you need to wait a month, okay, before you go buy your house, and make sure you got enough money saved up for your home inspection.
Yes.
Because I would tell you, it's every penny you spend on it, it's worth it.
Absolutely. Those are upfront, okay? And you know, they got to be paid. Now, once you get all that done, okay, you've paid all that, you've done all your stuff, you've got everything done, you go to the title company, the attorney, the bank, wherever you close the deal at, you sign and you sign and you sign and you sign, and now you get the keys to your house. Now there's more cost, okay? I don't want this to come across like it's crazy and ain't nobody going to be able to buy a house. Let me tell you, they buy them every single day. Okay, so this is common. But we're telling you this so you can be prepared. Okay,
right.
There are what we have got post-purchase. Okay, so after the home is yours, expenses that a lot of people don't think about. Here's one of the biggest ones. Okay, that house you just bought was somebody else's. Now it's yours. You got to get the power turned on. You got to get the water turned on.
Right.
You got to get all your utility transfers and deposits.
You're gonna say, they want them
most
deposits.
Places, that's what I was going to say. They require a deposit, okay, for you to be able to get all those turned on. That's a post-close expense. You need to be prepared for it. I ain't even going to try to tell you what that is, okay?
Right, yeah.
Utility transfers. Moving costs.
You're going to have to rent a U-Haul probably, get your stuff over.
What is it going to take to get you from where you are to where you want to go? If you're moving states, that's going to be probably a big fee, okay?
Yeah.
But even if you're moving across town, the U-Haul you can thank us later. We'll go ahead and take your sponsorship, but the U-Haul to get there, okay? That's going to be a cost. What about any immediate upgrades, any immediate repairs that maybe you said, you know what, I'm going to do this. I want this done before I ever move my furniture in. I want to paint the bedrooms. I want to put new flooring down. Those are expenses.
Tell people all the time, you better change your locks.
Yes. What about furniture? What about blinds? What about a lawnmower?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't think about, I'm moving from an apartment complex where they took care of the grass to now I got my own house. Now I got to take care of the grass. Well, you ain't going to do that with a pair of scissors.
Right.
Okay. Lawn equipment.
Yeah.
These things, a lot of first-time buyers don't have that equipment. Okay.
Right.
But remember, budget for after closing too. Okay. Those are expensive. Now, the good news is, you don't have to paint before you move in if you don't want to.
Right.
Okay. You don't have to necessarily run out and buy the best lawnmower that there is.
Yeah.
Those are things that you don't have to, but there's more than likely at some point in time, the utilities, you got to get those turned on.
Right.
Okay? There's going to probably be a deposit.
And I want to throw this out there because this might sound crazy, but I've heard this. There's some people there right now that probably going to hear this for the first time. Your loan that you are getting from the bank does not include all of these items.
No.
I mean, I'm saying we've heard people say, well, I got approved for $350.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy a $280,000 house and go buy some furniture,
Right.
lawnmower.
Right.
It don't do that, okay?
No, it don't work like that.
So that money has to come from you.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it does not go with your mortgage.
Mm-mm.
Just wanted to say that because again, you would be shocked the people who don't really understand that. And again, that's I mean, we've all been there at one point. We don't really know what it entails. Okay, we don't know what we can get with that money. They just told us they give us $400,000, and we're like, hey, we're going to buy a car.
Sure,
don't work that way.
Sure, yeah. So
don't work that way.
You need to budget for these. That way, you're buying with confidence.
Yeah.
That way, that kind of stuff is happening for you. You kind of know these. Now, here's just a few little tips that allows you to kind of be confident in this. Mm-hmm. And I can't overstate the first one enough. Okay. Just ask. Okay. Mm-hmm. A real estate professional, a real estate agent, a realtor, whatever you want to call them.
Right.
Ask them to help you estimate this stuff. Okay. Yeah. You always need to get pre-approved first for your loan. Right. Okay. You need to know your loan type. Mm-hmm. All of that needs to be done before you ever start going. Once you know that, now you could sit down with an agent because now we know a budget. Now we know probably at least the price range you're going to be buying a house in. And we can start helping you estimate those true move-in ready expenses that you're probably going to have.
Right.
That lets you know, okay, I'm ready, or I'm going to have to wait and get one more paycheck before I actually go.
Right.
That way all of that stuff is done. Take advantage of that free service. At least I can say for us here at Elite, and I'm sure it's this way around the country. People would love to have these conversations with you. It don't cost you nothing. We're not going to get you in a back room, twist your arm. Look, we're the ones telling you to do it.
Right.
You need to do these things. And you know why we're telling you this? Because we've saw so many people get the excitement of, man, I'm going to buy me a house.
Yep.
And you don't have these conversations up front. They get that house, they get that done, and they got an offer and it gets accepted. And then here we are as a real estate agent, and we've seen the good, the bad, the uglies, the indifference, especially when it comes to surveys and home inspections and all that good stuff, termites and all that we talked about with you earlier.
Mm-hmm.
We see these people put an offer in on a house. They get super excited, and they're like, all right, y'all, what's next? And we're like, well, we need to get a home inspection. I'm like, okay, well, I'm all for that. How much does that cost? And you get the cost for them. And they're like, man, I really can't afford that right now.
Right.
And we're sitting over here as a real estate agent thinking,
right.
you really need to protect your investment.
Right.
And then, they're like, hey, what else should I do to protect myself? You're like, well, you're buying 14 acres of property. You might want to know exactly where everything's at. Is this driveway on you or is it on your neighbor?
Right.
You're like, okay, well, what's this survey cost? You're like, well, it's $2,900.
Right.
Oh, gosh, I don't have it.
Right.
You see this stuff start happening.
Mm-hmm.
And you see them get the house and they can't get their power turned on. Like, I'm being real about this.
Yeah.
We don't want to see that happen. That's
No.
why we're throwing this information out there at you about hidden costs that could come up you need to be prepared for. Make sure you are prepared, but you don't have to be perfect. Okay.
Right.
This stuff don't have to be, we ain't going to be able to tell you about to the penny. You don't have to be perfect. We just want you to be prepared. That's it.
Right.
Pretty simple.
That's why it's very crucial that when you are constructing this offer, that you kind of know if you've got your budget. Okay, we've talked about a budget till we're blue in the face.
Yes.
But if you've got your budget in mind, you're going to know that those incentives or credits that these sellers are giving you can be your best friend.
Absolutely.
Okay, now your offer, there's people who just get so wrapped up on they're not going to drop from that price tag.
Mm-hmm.
They, like you just said, though, they could be offering you $15,000 in incentives.
Right.
That's really going to help you when it comes to this other stuff. Okay.
Absolutely.
So make sure you take advantage of that stuff. Have a realtor that is working on your best interest, that is helping you.
Right.
Try to get those deals. Okay.
Right.
Those incentives that they're offering.
Yeah. Remember, buying a home, it's exciting.
Very
Getting caught
exciting.
off guard by these costs that you're probably going to have, that ain't too fun.
No.
So you've got the information now today that's going to help you be a little bit more prepared.
Yeah.
As we always try to say here on this podcast, if you are in the East Tennessee area and you are wanting to have these sit-down in-person conversations, we're a phone call away.
Yeah.
Call an agent at Elite Realty Group. We'll be glad to have the conversations with you. Get in touch with me and Dave through whatever platform you're watching, listening on. We'll be glad to have those conversations. But I believe I can go ahead and say across the country, people would love to have these conversations with you. If you're in Idaho, if you're in Nebraska, and you're like, hey, that's good information, guys, but I really don't know nobody. We're networked to realtors literally across the country.
Yep.
Be glad to set you up with somebody that would have these conversations with you. Hopefully you now know what some of the hidden costs are when it comes to buying a home. Anything else from you, my friend?
No, that's it.
That does it for us on this episode of the Elite Realty Group Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow us on whatever platform you are watching us on. We would be honored for you to click that button and become a follower of us. Until next time, you guys be safe, be blessed. We will catch you on one of our upcoming episodes. Be blessed, y'all.